All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Little insomnia live stream tonight. Absolutely. So tonight we're gonna talk about, well, we ain't really gonna talk about nothing. We're gonna read this together, read like a family. And what we're gonna read here is the forensic accounting report on the city of Lakecity. Now, this has been in the news in South Carolina for the last 4 or 5 months. The economic problems that the city of Lakecity is experiencing. And there's a lot of reasons why people, the citizens are saying that this is happening. So they hired an independent auditor to come in and look at the books and see what they got. And we're going to go through this because it's quite fascinating. And so we'll take our time and sort of sit back, relax. If you find any of this entertaining or informative at any point, please feel free to hit the like button. Think about joining and also think about becoming a subscriber over here at Andrew's the Podcast. Again, tonight we're going to, well, not tonight, this morning. Yeah. And this thing is my noise gate is a little annoying to me. Mic check. Now it's staying open too long. Yeah. All right. Yeah, we'll deal with that. So yeah, let's get into this, right? This company right here, Ede Bailey or Bally LLP, is the company who performed the forensic accounting consulting services for the city of Lake City in response to a request for proposal 2025, which called for a forensic audit services of the city of Lake City's finances and operations, internal controls, basically, from July 1st, 2021 through July 30th, 2024. That's the scope and time period that was looked at. Figure 1 here, it says summarize the request by the city, and the corresponding report sections address each of them. All right. Throughout the engagement, we utilize common forensic accounting methodologies to identify potential indicators of financial improprieties. These methodologies included, but were not limited to, review and trend analysis of bank disbursements and credit card charges to vendors and individuals for changes in frequency and amount. Binford's law analysis, comparison of bank disbursement and credit card charges to the city's accounting to identify any unrecorded or mischaracterized transactions. Review of bank statements activity for transfer to unknown accounts and review supporting documentation such as invoices and receipts. The following section reflects the specific procedures performed with these records and related observations. All right, it also says that certain names and related informations have been included within the report. And I can tell you from this copy that I got, this is saying that I think it's recommended the city should consider redacting this information as deemed necessary prior to any disclosure to third parties. From what I've read so far, nothing has been redacted. So let's move on. The company is saying that they were considering the following during this engagement for the scope and time period. Documents that they examined, First Citizens bank statements and canceled checks for accounts ending in number 3061, number 606901, number 4701, number 3001, number 9634, number 7701, number 8501, number 9001, number 43001, and number 2601 for the time period of July 1st, 2021 through July 30th, 2024. First Citizens bank statements and canceled checks for accounts ending in number check number 1116 for the time period of June 9th through June 9th, 2022 through February 29th, 2024. Again, it's going to go through a whole list of different. This is what they use to come up with their findings. And then it's named some people here that they talked to get this information also. The fire chief, Mr. Driggers Randy, IT department, Chris Jones, IT department, Joel Jones, utilities billing, Naisha Izzard, the mayor, Yamikia Robinson, financial analyst, Rebecca Strange, accounts payable, Amanda Turner, city clerk, Nicole Werner, municipal judge, Gloria Washington, and the previous HR director, Brittany Webb. These are some people who, all right, the scope. The forensic accounting engagement is limited to the records made available to us. The City of Lakecity fiscal year 2024 audits has not been completed. Some information for the fiscal year 2024 is unobtainable due to its absence. There are various support documents missing for checks, credit cards, payroll, and other testing performed due to the lack of support. Due to the lack of support, we relied upon interviews, general ledgers, descriptions, and payees' names to assist us with our testing. In other words, they didn't keep very good records at all. The following observations reflect procedures and testings performed based on information obtained during the interview with city personnel and a review of city policies and procedures, financial statements, budget analysis. It says we compared the budget amounts to the audited financial statements. We were provided a draft of a copy of a fiscal year 2024 statement to assist with the comparison. Figure 2 shows an overview of this analysis. They overspent every year. This is almost $6 million. Reviewing the city's annual budget, we noticed overspent budgets in each of the fiscal years, totaling $6.1 million. Bank and credit card statements. Figure 3 providing a list of city bank accounts reviewed during engagement. There were 8,056 deposits totaling 552,896.73 and 8,951 disbursements totaling $75,256,575.51 identified within the bank accounts during the scope and time period, excluding transfers between city accounts. This results in cash outflows exceeding inflows of $2,703,678.98 for the scope time period. Figure 4 is a summary of this bank statement. Work paper 1 provides an annual summary of disbursement by vendor name, description by fiscal year. We requested copies of all city credit card statements, which consisted of 21 credit card accounts, 19 Bank of America, 1 First Citizens Bank and One South State. Figure 5 summarizes the activity of these accounts. So that's 21, 40, 41, 42, excuse me, accounts. I gotta grab me something to drink. These are these accounts. It says here we combine the credit card data and summarized it by payee, use of fund, and by fiscal year. It is our understanding that Bank of America credit card account numbers were changed multiple times due to suspicious activity being reported by the city. As a result, there are more than 19 separate Bank of America account numbers used in 3 years. An example of this is shown in figure 6. Where is figure 6? Oh, figure 6 right here. I got something to drink. This is crazy. But this is an example of what you need to be paying attention to. All right, check transactions. It says we tested 40 transactions using a risk-based approach, enabling us to address unique concerns and issues associated with each identified risk. In doing so, we were looking for patterns and trends that are traditionally connected to questionable activity. Various forensic techniques and practices were utilized to complete the sample testing for the check disbursement. Citibank statement data was documented and summarized by payee. Figure 6 shows 10 payee during the scope of this. So the city of Lake City, and it's just showing, and that's about 90. All right. It says here we applied Benford's law to the disbursement data as a high level test identifying outliers in payment amounts. The Benford law is a theory concerning the frequency of occurrence of expected distribution of significant digits within any set of data containing natural numbers. For example, the numbers 2, 1, 4, the leading digit would be the number 2. Benford's law states that that in a large number of transactions, the frequency of the first digit of a number will be a 1 more often than a 2, a 2 more often than a 3, and so on. Okay. That's Benford's law we learning right now. And Benford's law, if Benford's law is utilized and the leading digit and the leading digit of 5 has a higher frequency than the leading digit of 4, the deviation may indicate fictions, fictitious transactions or amounts that may not be naturally occurring. Oftentimes, the data follows the curve, but not all of the leading digits will fall within an acceptable deviation for forensic accounting purposes. We utilize this law with different types of data to determine if there are any anomalies within the data that should be reached or investigated further. We conducted the test as a high-level analysis to detect anomalies. Didn't mean to change that. Back up. Come on. Back up. Wrong way. How in the world did I do that? Come on. Really? Damn. What did I do? This is bullshit. This internet showing you that right now. All right, there we go. That'll just happen. All right, so they're saying that they conducted this test as a high level analysis to detect anomalies within the 8,782 check transactions totaling $53,133,346.37. Figure 8 provides an illustration detailing the results applying Benford's law to the leading digit of this data. All right. As shown in figure 7, above the green line represents the expected results, while the blue line represents the actual results from the data set, and the red line represents the lower and upper limits. The red dots indicate the numbers that have surpassed the lower and upper limits. The figure indicates that there are more transactions beginning with the number 2 that surpassed the upper limit than the prediction set forth under Benford's law. The figure also indicates that there are less transactions beginning with the number 4, 5, and 6 that fall below the lower than limit prediction set forth under Benford's law. The actual data set has 1,703 transactions totaling $9,426,781.36, beginning with the number 2. And the approximate number of transactions, according to Benford's law prediction, would have been around 1,546. As a result of the higher number of transactions beginning with 2, there is an offset result in the lower than expected number of transactions beginning with 1 that surpass the lower limit. As such, we selected our 40 transactions broken out by travel reimbursement and a random sections selection. We made sure to include transactions beginning with 2. We reviewed supporting documentation for 14 transactions totaling $538,196.07, 35% of the population beginning with the number 2. In short, there was just no kind of leadership going on in Lake City during the time period that these numbers here are being discussed. During interviews with city personnel, it came to our attention that many were concerned about travel reimbursements. Interviewees expressed that certain individuals traveled to out-of-state locations for lengthy periods of time. We were given specific examples such as, let me back up. Such as travel to Washington, D.C., Canada, Georgia, and Florida. Based on these concerns, we reviewed the public online check registers for individual names and selected 20 travel reimbursement payments totaling $10,247.23. Big difference in that number there. Sorry about that. Okay. Additional check reimbursements tested. The additional 20 selections were made via haphazard and random selection process. 3 haphazard selections were based on information that was provided to us during interviews. These include a payment for an age con event and 2 Chevy Tahoes purchased with grant funds. The remaining 17 transactions were selected at random on dates, descriptions, amounts, and other data provided in the check register and bank statements. Work paper 3, shows the individual transactions reviewed and test results. We noted that all 40 transactions did not have an approval purchase for the transaction. In addition, we noted that no transaction between 1,000 and 5,000 had 3 quotes required by the city per the employee handbook. So is that just being derelict in duty, or is that criminal? I mean, that's the policy. You violate the policy. What's the results? Credit card transactions as a part of as a part of credit card transaction review. We sampled 60 purchases for testing to ensure alignment with the city's policies and procedures. Specifically, we analyzed transactions related to the following categories: food, purchases made at fast food and dine-in restaurants with lower totals, which might indicate meals for one person. Retail transactions in general stores, which may include items not directly related to city business. Political, any purchases potentially related to political events, campaigns, or contributions. Alcohol, transactions that may include the purchase of alcohol. Alternative payment methods, transactions made through electronic platforms such as PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, and other similar services. City policy, transactions that were specifically prohibited in the city's purchasing policy, and other purchases deemed out of the ordinary or appear unrelated to the city's operations. Figure 9 shows the 10 credit card payees by amount and scope for the scope and time period. Got your Walmart, Amazon, for Prince, Lowe's, Marriott, Amazon, Municipal Association, South Carolina, Tractor Supply, The Stage Depot, KJ's Market, payee, something, $21,000. All right, let's see. Workforce shows the testing, shows the testing selection and results. Figure 10 and 11 show a summary of the results. Summary of credit card testing results. Questionable transactions, 29. Questionable transactions that totaled $29,109.43. Unreasonable transactions, 24 of them, and it totaled $17,090.25. And they only had 7 reasonable purchases of the credit or use of the credit card. That's figure 10 that I'm reading right now. And 7 reasonable purchase transactions that made sense. And that totaled $4,764.68. Thinking about that. Then documentation provided on these 60 transactions. 44 of them, they had documentation. I mean, how hard is it to use credit card, bring back the receipt? 16 of them, they had documents missing. And in that 16, you're talking about $10,641.40 of no documentation. All right, questionable credit card charges. Wow. Questionable credit card charges made via the credit card or either did not have supporting documentation with it, and the vendor name did not indicate a potential prohibited item or support documentation, which was provided as we were unable to determine the city's usage for the item. For example, we reviewed the purchase for a Walmart television. The television could not be used for a conference room or personal use. Since no specific purpose was provided, we were unable to determine the reasonableness for the transaction. Somebody needed a TV. Unreasonable credit card charges, unreasonable credit card transactions that appear to be connected to items or services that appear to be prohibited based on the credit card policy. For example, we noted that the limo service was provided for a trip to Washington, D.C. for 66 and a half hours, more than 2 days, for $9,286.74. Taxi cabs or limousines are noted to be prohibited on the credit card policy. We know the limo was used for the city trip to Washington, D.C., but we do not understand why the limo was necessary or approved for multiple days. There were also transactions that were not allowed per interviews with city personnel. For example, we observed a $365 charge for oral surgery. We were informed that this transaction was identified by the previous administrator, and the individual was required to repay the city, which was confirmed during our interview. Wow. Reasonable transactions were that we could verify the city's, for the purpose of what the city needed. All right, bidding selection. Through interviews with personnel the city has a purchasing policy that anything above $5,000 would be required to have competitive bidding. As such, we review the bank statement and credit card activity for any individual purchases that were above $5,000. We identified 185 payees that had individual transactions above $5,000 within their bank transaction. From the list, we selected 6 vendors for testing. Figure 12 shows the specific vendors tested. All right, you got the digging company, you got AECOM, Wade Construction. All right. When we requested the bidding documentation, it came to our attention that the bidding documentation and the process was being handled by a third party when it was connected to construction. For example, when it came to Digging Deep Construction LLC, we were provided a document that shows that AECOM, the general engineering contractor, put together the tabulation of bids received. This information was provided to the board, and the board voted and approved digging deep construction for the job. However, when we selected 3 additional vendors unrelated to the construction, we found that no bidding process was performed. Atlantis Heating and Air LLC. At a preliminary meeting with city administrators, we were notified of concerns related to payment of Atlantis Heating and Air LLC. They stated that the bid process may not have been followed for the vendors and a concern over a possible conflict of interest. To their knowledge, a conflict of interest was not disclosed to the city council. Reviewing the city employee handbook, and it states state law also prohibits employees from making governmental decisions on matters in which their family or business associates have an economic interest. Employees must notify their supervisor in writing if any matter in which they, their family or business associate have an economic interest and in which they must act. On behalf of the city, the supervisor must send the notification to the city administrator / mayor and or / council for review. If the city determines a potential conflict or the appearance of a conflict of interest exists, the matter will be reassigned to another employee. Since the city could not provide us with the written documentation showing the approval of this vendor, we tested all disbursements related to this vendor. We observed 17 disbursements totaling $118,345. Worker paper 5 provides the detailed review of our testing. During the testing, we noted 2 transactions above $40,000, which would have qualified for the bidding process individually. When we reviewed the support, we found that both transactions were for one project split in 2 payments. The project was to install a 5-ton sear condenser and duct replacement. We asked, why did this go out? Why did this not go out for bid? The response we received was the project was to be reimbursed by the county. And when the Okay. All right, let me try and finish this up. So apparently they was using none of the procedures that they have in place to if there's a bid that's supposed to is if there's a bid over $5,000, they're supposed to get 3 bids on it. They ain't doing none of that. And in one case, let's see if I'm still on this page. In one case, I think somebody was saying something about the family member getting some. That person got $118,000. Yeah, this is where I'm at now. For putting a 5-ton condenser and duct replacement. When asked why this did not get a bid, go out for bid, the response received was the project was, yeah, that's the whole reimbursed thing. All right, we here on the grant, federal grants. And this is talking about for fiscal year 2022 through 2023, all for all federal grants and programs. Figure 13 there is provided. Go over these. Come on, man. Unbelievable, this internet. Unfriggin' believable. But I'm gonna get through this. So believe it. In fiscal year 2022, the financial auditor selected 2 federal programs for testing. Ooh, this is interesting, definitely, because people are always talking about the water bill in all these rural places, but they selected 2 federal programs for testing: water and and waste disposal systems for rural communities and economic adjustment assistance. In fiscal year 2023, the financial auditors selected 1 federal program for testing water and waste disposal systems for rural communities. For our review, we selected 2 different federal programs that had not undergone recent audit procedures. We selected the Environmental Protection Agency wastewater treatment plant and COVID state and local fiscal recovery fund. Environmental Protection Agency wastewater treatment plant. The funds for this grant were primarily used to construct a new laboratory at Lake Swamp Wastewater Treatment Facility. We reviewed the general ledger details and noted most of the activity in the account was for construction costs. These construction costs appear to have been capitalized at the end of each fiscal year after the financial statement auditors had received the transactions. The construction was primarily performed by BRW Construction Group. We did not note any compliance issues when reviewing the account. However, during the interview, it came to our attention that $139,500 of these funds were paid to a fraudulent payee. For more information, please see the external fraud section later in this report. $139,000, $139,500 was paid to a fraudster. COVID state and local fiscal recovery fund. The city received 2 payments of $1,617,246.10 during the scope time period, totaling $3,234,492.20. These funds were placed into the deferred revenue account as the funds had not been spent yet and were reserved for specific use. Okay. We reviewed the National League of Cities website to confirm on the use of the funds. The website confirmed that the city attempted to have the funds obligated for revenue replacement, affordable housing, Church Street tank rehabilitation and repair, premium pay, essential employee, and Graham pump station relocation. When the grants were approved, the $3,234,492 was obligated to the revenue replacement requests. Reviewing the council's minutes, it was not that the council approved that revenue replacement funds were to be used for premium pay for eligible employees. We noted 2 transactions totaling $332,746.18 that were made for this approved purpose. Through reviewing the general ledger, we noted another 9 transactions totaling $1,083,920.37 were made to the affordable housing, were made on the affordable housing. 5 Tahoe trucks, the police, and a John Deere mower. 9 transactions were made on the affordable housing. Okay, so 9 transactions totaling $1 million were made on the affordable housing. 5 Tahoe trucks, for the police, a John Deere tractor. We recommended the city reach out to the state of South Carolina and verify these transactions followed the grant. During the review, we identified that the city spent remaining funds on various other projects, but did not record or process the payments through the deferred revenue account. Sounds highly illegal to me. Instead, they processed the payments through the general fund and intended to reimburse the funds from the deferred revenue account. This is crazy. This has not been put the money back as of to date of this report. As of December 31st, 2024, the city claims to have spent all remaining funds. However, since these funds were not properly recorded, the deferred revenue account, we are unable to determine if the funds were spent on eligible items. Of course they weren't. It is our recommendation that the city identify the transaction in the general funds that were used for the ARPA funds and properly record adjusting entries to go back and correct it. Yeah, right. According to records, we notified the city auditors of this issue and they were aware of the deferred revenue currently being overstated. All right, I'm gonna do this external fraud one here. This part I really want to think it's 31. Nope. how we. There we go. Let's do that. Throughout interview with personnel, we identified two key areas of high risk: timesheets and personnel action forms (PAF). Employees completed timesheets that were reviewed by supervisors and then entered into a system by the former human resource manager, past HR manager. No secondary review of the past HR manager's entries occurred, as they were the sole individual responsible for inputting data. This lack of segregation of duties created the opportunity to alter timesheets without detection. The same control weakness existed for the PAF, as the past HR manager alone will enter this information, allowing potential unauthorized payroll changes or certain creations of fictitious employee without independent review. Taking the risk-based approach, we tested these areas as if they were could identify each. Excuse me, as if we could identify any questionable activity. Just see if we can the timesheets. The timesheet samples we selected through various different forensic techniques. First, we collected data for payments made by each employee. We summarized this data by each employee by year and compared the increase and decrease for each year. We noted any instances where, trying to see the very bottom of this, y'all. All right, we noted not hired in one of the years. Additionally, we noted instances where an employee received more than 27 payments in a year. When we selected a sample size of 40 timesheets from 11 individuals for testing, work paper 6 shows the specific individual timesheets tested. Figure 14 summarizes the results. You can see right here where it says missing employee signatures 15 times. No match records 4 times. Missing records and timesheets, and no supervisor signature on 2 different occasions that they tested. And they just running this city here all willy-nilly. That's your payroll. Out of 29 other payroll adjustment, PAFs, we noted 21 with findings or approximately 72% of the sample size provide worker 9 provide details for the termination sample selected and their corresponding results. Missing department head signature, missing city administrator signature, missing employee signature. Yeah, they just got ran amok. Oh, this is what I wanted to see right here. I'm gonna finish with this. In August 2022, the city fell victim to a phishing scheme, which resulted in 3 payments to an illegitimate vendor of $139,500, $528,675.66, and $835,708.71 for a total of $1,503,884.34. It soon came to the attention of the former city administrator, who turned it over to the insurance company and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the First Citizens Bank Fraud Department, which was able to recover $533,213.85 from the illegitimate vendor's account. The insurance company also issued a check for $200,000, totaling the results is a $770,670.52 of overspending of our scope period. We did confirm that $139,500 payment came out of the Environmental Protection Agency wastewater treatment plant fund. Wow. City events net loss. The city held multiple events during that time period that they just forensic audit for. During the scope time period, such as AgeCon, Juneteenth. Okay. The city held multiple events during the scope time period. AgeCon, Juneteenth, food truck, rodeo, Gospel on the Green, Festival of Lights, and esports. The events were meant to bring in donations to the city, but resulted in a net loss. Work paper 10 shows the breakdown of each event and the resulting net loss of $326,954.05. During our interviews, we learned the city had concerns that some vehicles were purchased and remain unused. One such vehicle was a Tahoe in the amount of $38,280.50. Excess spending. The remaining amount of net cash outflow can be linked to various events but it is not easily measurable. For example, the travel budget for the finance department was $6,000. During our testing, we confirmed that the limo purchase via the credit card for $9,000. Through interviews with personnel and through observing no travel reimbursements with no travel reimbursement form with the payment, there is a chance that this was recorded under transportation rather than the travel budget. The intermingling of funds and budget make it difficult to calculate travel. However, through interviews, we know that there's an increase in the amount of that there was an increase in the amount of travel in 2023 and 2024. Yeah, so they got a big mess in Lakecity, and I definitely will be diving back into this document right here. I finally like I got some internet that wants to play fair, so you'll see how that's working.